Welcome to Why Soul Works. I'm Kendall Bird, your host, VP of Brand here at Soul Naturals. Welcome and thank you for coming today to participate in this live broadcast of Why Soul Works. Thanks for joining us and thanks for chatting in and letting us know that you're out there. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask those. I have a hard time listening and reading at the same time, but I will try and see your comments and your questions, and I will try to pass those on if I can. May this month is Mental Health Month, National Mental Health Month. And if you've paid any attention to our social media, we are highlighting that because we're all about mental health here at Soul Naturals. Also, right around the corner is Mother's Day. So we thought that we would cover this all-important topic of mothers and how important their mental health is to not only them, but those around them. Being a mother could possibly be the most demanding job there is. It starts with childbirth and how demanding that is on the body and the hormones. And then after that, the lack of sleep and the constant demands for your time and energy can make any person feel like they are their mental state might be slipping. But what is going on with your mental state at this point, and what should you be concerned about, and what can you do about it to help yourself? Let's talk about that right now on Why Soul Works. Yes, we're talking about mental health, and we have a fantastic person here to guide us in this discussion, to help us understand all the intricacies of mental health as it pertains to mothers. Dr. Alison Caldwell-Andrews is joining us tonight to share her knowledge with us, and she is very knowledgeable. She is very well educated. Dr. Alison's education includes postdoctoral fellow in mind and body medicine at Yale University School of Medicine. She has a PhD in clinical psychology at the University of Kentucky, MS in clinical psychology, as well as presidential and quality achievement fellowships at the University of Kentucky, BS with University of Honors in Family Sciences at Brigham Young University. Now she is currently associate professor of psychology at Southern Virginia University, and she's taught and on faculty at many schools such as Southern Connecticut University, Yale University School of Medicine, and University of Kentucky. She has written a book, several books, and including this one right here, The Fix, which I love this book. Starting Soul, this book and the information in this book that Alison brought to us was very influential in the way we thought about things and our philosophy as we developed our philosophy as Soul Naturals. So that's a very important book to us, and she is our principal scientific advisor and has been from the very beginning. Alison, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Kendall. It's always so fun to be here.
I know that you just find so much joy in sharing your knowledge with people. I think that is so cool. Thank you for spending some time with us tonight.
I'm so happy. Thanks. I feel this is my home.
And tonight we're talking about mental health, and we're talking about mothers and how those things how mothers have a unique need for supporting their mental health. Tell us a little bit about what's unique about mothers and their mental health.
So many things, Kendall, so many things. As a mother myself, I've experienced a lot of those things. I've experienced also, like most people, this sense of wondering, where am I? Am I over the line? Am I next to the line? Where is the line? People joke about when you're in medical school, and the same joke happens when you're in school to become a psychologist. When you read those medical diagnoses, everybody's self-diagnosing. They're all saying, "Oh my gosh, this is me. This is me. All of these are me. I'm crazy." And one of the things that I learned, that everyone learns as they're in training to become a psychologist, is where that line is and how to do a proper diagnosis, and what it really means to and to be in this more of a category. It's really more of a continuum, but where I guess where the line is between what's normal and what's not normal. And so I thought, let's talk about that for moms, because a lot of times moms worry about that. And they think, am I going crazy? And so we're searching frantically around for some validation. And do other people feel the same way as I do? So I thought, let's look at what poor mental health is and look at it in terms of being a mom, because there are some unique things about moms that you have to kind of look at. Many moms don't have the opportunity to have regular sleep all the time, especially when you've got those new babies. And so, where do you draw the line between just being a regular, busy, tired, and sort of overwhelmed sometimes mother who's still feeling insecure, who's still trying to figure it out, and versus what's normal for moms? What's normal when you're kind of busy and overwhelmed like a mom? And where does the line get drawn between you really need to look for some help? So let's take a look. We're going to go to Momville, regular Momville, versus signs of poor mental health. So next slide. Regular Momville, your sleep gets disrupted. You may have a newborn. You may have a kid who's a year old. You may have a kid who's getting sick. You may have multiple children. If your sleep gets disrupted, that's pretty normal for being in Momville, but you can't be living with disrupted sleep all the time. And so once your baby can sleep through the night, you want to be really getting pretty decent sleep most of the time. And so you might think a line might be, if your sleep does get disrupted, you can return pretty easily back to normal sleep. You can have a pretty normal sleep schedule most of the time. When it gets disrupted, you can recover within a few days. That's pretty regular Momville. If your sleep is constantly disrupted and you cannot, even when you don't have disruptions and you can't get it back to being more normative sleep, that's when you want to look at other things that might be a problem. And we'll tackle some of those in later podcasts or later broadcasts. I don't know what you call these things. Maybe Why Soul Works. We'll look at, I'm thinking kind of adrenal exhaustion kind of things that you would really lean on some of these adaptogens for. As a regular mom, of course, you want to be leaning on adaptogens because you're under stress. This is hard work. It's demanding in all of the ways, like Kendall was saying. It's demanding physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It's such hard work, and it requires the most intelligence you could possibly have. You just have to bring all of it in order to kind of feel like you're doing a halfway decent job. I think one of the challenges moms get, and this does affect your sleep too, is this worry about, am I doing enough? And that sort of goes with being a mom. So we'll talk about that in a minute too. So you might find, sleep-wise, if you're staying up late all the time to get a little bit of time to yourself, then what happens is you don't ever get really good rest. And so you can't get enough rest when you're not getting enough sleep. So you need enough sleep. And if you need to stay up late to have any time to yourself, let's look at ways you can rebalance your life so that you can get that time without having to sacrifice sleep a lot. Once in a while, it makes sense. But it can't be regular. And if it's a regular thing, then your sleep is regularly disrupted. The thing about sleep is that people don't realize how sleep deprived they are. We know this. It's pretty documented that people really underestimate how sleep deprived they are. And when they can get enough sleep, they're surprised at how actually creative they are and how good they feel. And so just kind of think about, if you think, well, it's not that bad, I'm functioning, I'm fine. You might think again, because you might feel like you're functioning, but what we know is that when you are sleep deprived, you're not functioning nearly as well as you normally could be functioning. With something as hard as parenting, you want to make sure that you've got everything you can for your game. And so you want to make sure you're getting enough sleep and not overestimate the functioning you're doing and underestimate how much sleep you need. You probably need more sleep than you think. The other thing is that gets in the way is a lot of times parents don't put their kids to bed early enough. One of the things we know about sleep is that kids need sleep that matches the circadian rhythm of the planet we live on, right? It's kind of hard to fool your body. None of us fool our body. When the sun is up, our body knows the sun is up. Unless you're living underground for months at a time with zero clues about what time it is, your body knows where the sun is, and your circadian rhythm gets tied to the sun and is signaled. So when the sun goes down, your body knows the sun has gone down and your body would like to rest. It's the same thing for your kids. And when we give the body a demand to not rest, then the body has to produce stress hormones in order to stay awake. And sometimes we call that with kids, we're like, oh, they're getting their second wind, etc. And if you're getting your second wind, you or your kids, then it's past the time to go to bed. The time to go to bed would be, I think the thing my husband and I used was, if you have one yawn, that's it. One yawn, rubbing your eyes once. That was the signal. Okay, now it's time. Because after that, and as a grown-up, it's the same thing. After that, you are trying to stay awake. You've created this situation with your body where you're saying, nope, I'm not going to let you have your needs met. You need to go to sleep, but apparently there's a war on and we have to go fight. Or so your body might think, right? And so you want to make sure that your kids are getting to bed regularly, early enough. This makes them a lot happier. And it gives you a little bit of time on your own also before you have to go to bed. So kids need way more sleep than you might think. You could go online and check out, according to the age of your child, how much sleep they need. And especially as they're teenagers, they need plenty of sleep. And so you want to help them go to bed earlier and establish those really good habits of sleep. Next. Momville, it's hard to socialize because you have all these kids and the kids have needs and you sort of live your life around that schedule for a number of years. But, you can make an effort to socialize. And when you do socialize, you remember, oh man, this is fun. I enjoy this. Or you might think, well, I'm a little worried about my kids. It's a new babysitter or something, but you still remember it's fun to socialize. The danger sign is when you don't want to socialize because you're so burned out or you're so tired or you just don't feel like being around people. That's when there's more of a sign of this is entering into poor mental health. You do have temporary schedule changes. Yeah. Sometimes things happen. And if your kids are in bed on time most days and you're able to socialize occasionally at least, then that's probably fine. When you want to worry is when you don't want to socialize and when your kids are consistently up too late or when you're consistently up too late. And so make it a priority. Find ways to make a priority where you're connecting with people you enjoy, connecting with friends, connecting with family, having some time alone that you can regularly count on instead of just a gift that randomly happens. So think about creating a life where you can count on some of these things. Next slide. Regular Momville, it's normal to have a little anxiety, especially when you're a new parent. When you're a more established parent, you think, okay, I've been through this. I know what this is. But when you're a new parent, especially, or when your kids are hitting new milestones, then a little bit more anxiety is kind of normal. If you can't sleep for your worries, if other people think you're worrying excessively, if you think you're worrying excessively, then you might want to find ways to get some help with that, get some feedback, find ways to engage in maybe more mindfulness, letting go, or getting some help from therapy. In any of these things, getting a good therapist's help is often very, very useful. When you want a good therapist, some people think like they need to really try very hard to make it work. And so what they do is they're doing therapy 3, 4, 5, 6 times without realizing that they're still not connecting, or thinking that they have to keep trying to connect. And my thinking is that give it 2 or 3 times maybe. And if at the third time you're really not feeling like there's a connection, find a different therapist. Okay, next. A lot of times people have trouble focusing when they're multitasking. And when you're a parent, you are the queen of multitasking, because you just need to be aware of so many different things all the time. Mothers, well, I mean, female brains really are built differently than male brains. And part of that helps us multitask a little bit better. But multitasking as a way of life is very tiring. And so there's a line between I'm having trouble concentrating because I'm multitasking versus I am having trouble concentrating and I think that there's something wrong with my thinking. Sometimes that could indicate some depression. Sometimes that could indicate a fair amount of overwhelm, maybe lack of sleep might enter into those sorts of things. And so getting enough sleep, getting exercise for sure. Exercise is really important. Try and create the time. And in fact, do it. Don't just try. Do it. Create that time to make it happen, even if it's very light exercise. One of the things that we know recently is that women actually need less exercise than men, which is nice to know. I think we get by with about 1/3 of the exercise that men need to get the same results. And that makes sense because as a mom, it's awfully energy consuming, time consuming, demanding to go and do the same amount of exercise. But as we all know, you get plenty of exercise just running around with your kids. I spent a lot of time with my granddaughter today, and I was thinking, it doesn't look like I'm doing a lot, but I feel very much like I'm doing a lot in terms of physical activity. The other thing you want to make sure with your brain is you've got plenty of those omega-3 fatty acids happening. Those omegas are so important. You've already dumped a lot of that into building a baby brain during pregnancy. But certainly, and so you need the rebuilding, but certainly you use those omega-3 fatty acids throughout your whole body. And they're precious. They're very precious. And so you want to be getting as much of those as you can. So you're using your brain nutrition. You're not just forcing yourself through. You're not just pushing with willpower, but you're using nutrition to help you create the kinds of outcomes that you need as a mom. Next. Let's talk about fatigue. Yes, fatigue is pretty normal when you're a mom. People say, "Oh, I'm so tired." Of course you are. You are fatigued. You're running all the time. Definitely tiring. However, what you want to look at is how long does it take you to bounce back? If it takes you a long time to bounce back, or if you find that after a couple of days of rest, you're not even able to bounce back at all, that's when you start to think, okay, there's something more happening than just regular parenthood. What more do I need to do to help my body so that it can bounce back? And again, you might be looking at some sort of adrenal fatigue where, again, adaptogens all the way through parenthood make a lot of sense. So the other thing to think about is you have a whole village of people around you. You're not alone. You may feel alone, but I'm telling you, there are parents out there who want to connect, who are looking for another person who can share their thoughts, their worries, their connections, that sort of a thing. And so let's all work together, rely on each other. We're here for each other. Our bodies are built to connect. And so let that connection be a thing. Next. Self-care is also hard for new moms. The joke is like, when did you get to shower? Can you get to shower ever sometimes? But if you're really still interested in self-care and you happily do it when you have the opportunity, you're doing fine. You might wanna schedule someone to be around occasionally so you can take that really, really long hot shower that you long for, etcetera. If you lose interest in self-care and you find that you just don't even care about self-care, that's when you want to start to worry, is when you lose interest, not when you have dirty hair because you didn't have time. Next. Sort of regular momville as you wanna escape. I think a lot of moms would like to have a little time to themselves, relish the idea of being able to go to the grocery store on your own and shop for food without worrying about little ones. That is definitely normative. But if you want to completely escape long term, if you're looking for a new identity, that's definitely cause for concern. So ask for more help. And I think in general, as a mom, you want to be asking for more help than you probably think you should. We live in a society that overvalues self sufficiency and undervalues being connected and asking each other for help and the bonds that creates when you can connect and help each other. Next slide. Here are some concerns. I've got a couple pages of these. If you have increased anger and aggression, that's definitely a concern. And you want to look at what are you missing in terms of rest, in terms of exercise and nutrition. Maybe you're not even hydrated enough, but at the point where you're having increased anger and aggression, I think you need more than you might think. And so that is a beginning sign to really pay attention to. Increased sadness or feeling like I can't stop being sad. It's like it kind of took over me and I can't get out of it. Same thing. That's also a sign of concern where you want to look for help. Any reduced joy, sense of peace, get some help there. Now, the other concerns would be a reduced sense of pleasure. That's kind of a sign of depression when you can't really find pleasure in the things that you used to find pleasure in. Also, a sign of burnout, feeling guilty, feeling worthless. As a mom, we kind of joke about that, but really, honestly, feeling guilty and worthless, or both guilty and worthless, that's not good. That's a sign that you need some help, and you need more than maybe a couple days of rest. If you feel like you can't go on or it's hard to be optimistic, you definitely need to get some help. More than maybe just asking for a little support now and then, I think you need some good help. Next. How can you support your mental health? Well, like last time we talked in terms of stress about the biggest stressors in your life are not getting good nutrition, not getting good exercise, not being well hydrated, and not getting enough sleep. It's kind of similar here. The biggest stressors for your mental health are also the lack of those four things: nutrition, sleep, exercise, and hydration. When you exercise and you feel exhausted and it makes you feel worse, that's a sign that maybe you're past where exercise is helpful and you need much, much more help. And so instead of pushing yourself to exercise anyway, I would take a minute and well, more than a minute, right? Get some help and figure out what's happening with your body. Nutrition, this is a great opportunity for you to model for your kids, loving vegetables, loving fruits, loving salads, etc., loving real foods. The ultra processed food, we're starting to see more and more extremely concerning signs about its impact on mental health, on focus, on concentration, on attention, on depression, on anxiety, on general sense of well-being. Lots of concerns with ultra processed foods. And so really look for those real foods. Make your food at home all the time, as much as you possibly can, so that you can avoid getting foods with you don't know what's in there. Lots of hydration. Again, model lots of water intake for your kids. I've worked with people who've had parents who they said they never remember them ever even drinking water. And that had a difficult impact on their kids in terms of their physical health. And then showing your kids that sleep is a priority. Sleep is something to enjoy. Sleep is something that you want. They're not missing out on all of the fun when they're asleep. You're also looking forward to your sleep. And so find ways to create regular and important prioritized instances of all these things so that you can model this for your kids and change their mental health. Next slide. Parenting in our society is not as respected as it should be. And a lot of parents realize that, and a lot of people understand that. And still, we find ourselves saying, well, what's your job? What do you do? And people will say, oh, I'm just a stay at home mom, instead of, I have the best, most important job in the world. And I'm telling you, it is the best and the most important job in the world. And so you need to get that sense of accomplishment happening. Value your efforts. A lot of times, what happens when people stay home and raise their kids and they do all this hard work is that they devalue their efforts and they don't recognize that all of the things they're doing are worthy of accomplishment. And instead of getting a sense of accomplishment or a sense of mastery, when you're at work, let's say you empty your inbox and you're like, yay. But emptying your inbox is nothing compared to teaching a kid generosity. Nothing at all. And so you should find ways to develop that sense of mastery and tell yourself, recognize, wow, that was a big major accomplishment. And don't be vulnerable to, well, all I did today was, sometimes it's hard to do anything, especially when you have, a toddler or a infant. It is hard to get anything done. You are so important. What you do is ruling the world. And so think about, what can you do so that you daily remember this? Maybe you can put together a ritual. Maybe there can be some sort of set of grounding affirmations that you read in the morning, something to remind you of how critical you are. You need it, and we all need you to have that sense of mastery. Okay, next. Happy moms are emotionally engaged with their kids, and that emotional connection, that engagement, instead of emotional neglect, when the parents are not really able to connect emotionally with their kids, that makes a tremendous, tremendous difference. Um, when you're depressed and overwhelmed, this really affects your kids. And feeling emotionally neglected is what the result is when you're feeling depressed or overwhelmed. You're not able to engage emotionally. And this really affects kids. Emotional neglect has long, far-reaching consequences. It affects kids in terms of their future relationships. It'll affect your grandkids, etc. And so if you are finding that you are so overwhelmed and depressed that you're not able to emotionally connect with your kids, go do the thing where you get help. Get it as fast as you can, get as much as you need. Connect with the people who are happy to support you. Another thing you could do is model gratitude for your kids. Life is not all of the fun stuff all of the time, as we all know. That is kind of normative. In fact, there's a saying where they say, the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows of life. And a lot of times I kind of joke that in America, it feels like we have 10,000 joys and we should have about 18 or 19 sorrows, where we know that's not the case. And so if we can model gratitude and equanimity, emotion regulation for things that happen, boundaries, how can I help my child understand that it is okay to say no? It's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to carve out a life that I can work with. So you can be a happy mom. See what you can do to create that happiness. And if you need help, we may have some more options for you in the future. And there's therapy, good therapy as an option. There are plenty of really great books. There are podcasts out there. There's plenty of information. Next. The world really needs you. I think this is my final message. And maybe you need to just take a picture of this and hang it on your wall or something. You have more impact than anyone else in the world, any other job. For serious. You can be so powerful. So be powerful. Be intentional. Let that happen. Go moms. Thanks.
I love it. I love it. Oh, thank you so much. One of the things I noticed is, you're talking about things like that having poor sleep or having being tired and anxious, and some of these things are normal. But if we kind of let them get continue on and on and on, then and not uh, maybe nip them in the bud or handle them while they are normal things, they can get out of hand. Am I right? Is it a scale? And you try to keep the bad under wraps, or is there a line and you cross it and you're in trouble at some point? Or
I think, well, if you think of it as a continuum, there's a lot to be said for that. But when you think about the way your body responds to stress, your body is good at handling stress at the beginning, and this gives you the opportunity to solve it. What a lot of people do is they refuse to solve it. They just wait for it to be over instead of fixing the underlying problem. And so let's say you're a parent and you're not getting enough sleep and you think, "Oh, I just need to get through this." Where that's not really helpful. It's not about getting through this and lasting longer than the problem. It's really about fixing the underlying problem and saying, "Look, this is not working. That's why I'm having a problem. That's why I'm stressed. And so let's fix it." So
yeah,
figuring out how to fix things using adaptogens again to help manage that stress.
yeah. So your nutrition and adaptogens and your sleep and your exercise, your three-legged stool that you've talked about several times, and then your
Several times.
hydration.
Once or twice.
Yeah, once or
Yes.
twice. Um, you talked about exercise and how important exercise is, and we all know that. I can imagine that after a day of just running ragged, multitasking, uh, there's just no way that you can imagine doing exercise on top of that, and even believing that that will do you any kind of good. what do you
Yeah.
what do you say to that?
No, when we think about exercise, we generally think about exercise more intense than really what we need. And so if you think, I'm going to go enjoy moving my body instead of I'm imagining myself doing a hard workout where I'm sweating for 30 minutes, your body benefits more than you might think from some kind of gentle movement, stretching, maybe a little rebounding, maybe a walk. Walking is fantastic for you. And so when you think about exercise as being really intense and difficult, of course you don't want to do it. But you might think about, what does my body feel like I'm up to? And maybe I'm
Mhm.
going to go do that.
So, all day long you've done baby lifts all day long. Is that does
Right.
can you count those, or is there
Absolutely.
yeah. But do you want to get is there a goal, like you need to get your heart rate up a bit, or you need to get your lymph system moving, so you
Yeah,
need a
you
little bit
definitely
of a
want.
constant.
Right. And walking is really good for that. Walking is great for heart rate and for lymph movement. Walking is maybe one of the most perfect things you could possibly do. Walking is also something you can do with your kids, with a group of other parents, etc. Walking is fantastic.
Mhm. Which kind of brings me to my next point, is modeling good behavior for your children. I love that. I love that for a lot of reasons, because uh, that helps them in their lives become more well-rounded people when you're modeling the right behaviors. Plus, it kind of makes you think, oh, I need to be doing this good behavior to help my child. So therefore, it does you good. So I love that.
Right. My daughter actually said something very much like that today, where she said, it's sometimes it's hard to do the things that you need to do in that moment, but you're doing them for your future. And you're investing, and I've talked to her a lot about investing in that very beginning, where you're saying, no, this is what happens at bedtime, this is the routine. This is what happens when I put you in your car seat. This is the routine. That's hard at the beginning, and a lot of times parents give up, but then they're giving themselves so much more work on the back end instead of kind of front loading all that work and creating a good boundary and a good habit. Then they can kind of enjoy for the rest of that time. Their kids will grow up better for it, and their grandkids will be happier for it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I am so impressed every time I hear you speak and the things I learn. I so appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us tonight.
So happy to. I'll see you
Thank
again
you.
soon.
Yep, we'll see you. In fact, Alison will be back. Dr. Alison Caldwell-Andrews will be back on June 11th, and she'll be talking about tackling burnout, which I am really excited about learning about, because I need to develop some techniques and some learning on that. So I'm excited about that. Thank you all for joining us and spending some time with us tonight. Thanks for your comments. But that is all for tonight, and we will see you next time on Why So Works.